guys, welcome back to the Reason Studios live setup tutorials. This is part 2. In part 1 we looked at mapping a single keyboard to a single virtual instrument. Today we're going to look at adding more instruments, and then you will also see that this setup is pretty handy. So the first step is to go back to Loop MIDI. In Loop MIDI we have our first loopback port. We're going to create another loopback port there. I'm going to call it loopback 2. Yes, it has been added. Actually, I'm going to create another loopback port because we're going to add 2 devices. Loopback 3. Edit. Okay. So here I'm going to add another, let's see, instruments, Reason devices, external MIDI instrument, and another one, instruments, Reason devices, external MIDI instrument. I'm gonna map the first one to loopback 2 and the other one to loopback 3. Then I'm going to edit and then preferences, and we're going to control surfaces, and there we already have our first virtual keyboard, and we're going to add another one, well, 2 more actually. Again, select other as manufacturer, select MIDI keyboard no controls, then we're going to call this virtual keyboard 2 and map it to loopback 2. Again, you will see this is automatically set as the master keyboard. I'm going to say use no master keyboard. And we're going to repeat this for virtual keyboard 3. Mapping it to loopback 3. Okay, use no master keyboard. Alright. So our loopback ports have been mapped to external MIDI instruments, and we have created virtual keyboards for them. So now I'm gonna add two more devices. First one is a bass line with a nice arpeggiator. It's contained in a combinator. I'm just gonna collapse all these. And another one is the lead synth. And this is a Europa. Let's see if they work. The lead synth. Yeah, that works. And then I select the arpeggiator, or the bass. Well, that one's actually holding. So that's nice. Now we are going to map the virtual keyboards to these 2 devices. So virtual keyboard 2, I'm going to map it to the bass line, and virtual keyboard 3, I'm going to map it to the virtual keyboard. Notice that I'm mapping the whole combinator and not any of the instruments inside it. So that's nice, but now I want to be able to play the bass line only on the left part of the keyboard and play the strings and the lead synth on the right part of the keyboard. So let's see, because if I select now this combinator, you will see that it plays all 3 instruments at the same time, which we don't want, of course. So I'm going to go to the programmer of this combinator, of the external instruments combinator, and then we will see the 3 different instruments. They all have receive notes enabled, so they all play when this combinator is played. So I'm going to reduce the range of the first one, which is our bass instrument. Let's see, and I'm going to reduce the range of the other 2 to a higher range. Right. So I'm gonna rename, actually no, that's not right, because my first instrument was my strings, my second instrument was my bass line. So Let me see. All right. So if I would play, say, C0, well, that's C1 actually, that's also fine. I need to make this range a bit higher because I want to be able to play C1 at least for my bass line. Yeah, so what you see is if I play on the left side of the keyboard, I only hear the bass line. On the right side, I'm hearing both the strings and the lead synth. So that's already a bit better. But what I also want to do now is to make sure that I can enable and disable these strings and this lead synth, because I don't always want to be playing them at the same time. So I'm going to say, okay, this is instrument 1. I'm actually going to rename this to Venus strings. Rename the second one to ARP bass, and the third one to lead synth, to make it a bit clearer. So the Venus strings, I'm going to map button 1 to receive notes. So now if button 1 is on, it will play the Venus strings, and if button 1 is off, it won't play them. I'm gonna do the same for the bass line. So I'm selecting the bass line here. Gonna say button 2, map it to receive notes. Do the same for the lead synth. I'm gonna use button 3 for that. So if I click lead synth, it's on, now it's off. Same for the bass line, it's on, now it's off. So of course I don't want to be pressing these buttons with my mouse when I'm doing a live performance. So I'm gonna map these to knobs on the keyboard. Not knobs, buttons, sorry. So I'm gonna say edit remote override mapping. I'm actually gonna press the button on the keyboard, which is pad 1 for the Venus strings. I'm gonna do the same for the bass line. It is pad 2. And for the lead synth, pad 3. So you see, if I'm pressing these pads now, I'm enabling and disabling the separate instruments. So now if I play here, I will only hear my Venus strings. And if I disable those and then enable the lead synth, so that's pretty cool. And my bass line is also enabled. So now I can play, for example, the bass line and the strings together. So that's pretty cool. So in this tutorial we learned how to map one physical instrument to several virtual instruments, and enabling and disabling them with pads on the keyboard, and playing them at the same time. So in the next part 4, we're going to add a hold to our strings, because it's nice if we can, for example, trigger the strings, keep them playing, and then move to our lead synth. So that's for the next part of this tutorial.